Motorcycle Adventure Dirtbike TV is proudly supported by Adventure Spec in England, Rally Raid Products, Giant Loop in the United States and Adventure Moto in Australia.
Rally Raid products have a proven track record of turning standard bikes into round-the-world adventure mounts capable of taking you anywhere. They focus on improving suspension, making tougher wheels, protecting the engine, extending fuel range, improving carrying capacity, and so much more. Today, we put the Rally Raid's KTM690 head-to-head with the newest and significantly smaller addition to the Rally Raid family, the BMW G310 GS.
So a lot of people have said to us, this is a very strange comparison. Welcome to the odd couple. You wouldn't think there was too much to compare between these two bikes. But in fact, when we start talking about round the world touring, these bikes become very, very close and far closer than you think. So the KTM690, you know this bike. In 2012 it went from London to Sydney, and since then it's travelled all over Australia, crossed the Simpson Desert a couple of times, into the tropics, Victorian high country, done everything. It's got about 60,000 Ks on it. And this is the BMW G310 GS, and this bike has done about 10,000 Ks all over Australia. But then again, we've got another one exactly the same build from Amy Harburg that's just ridden from Mongolia to London. So both of these bikes have very strong credentials in terms of being able to be round the world tourers.
Nosh Mystery, an international motorcycle adventurer in his own right, has dropped in today to give me a hand. And for the first time, Mad TV will broadcast a review of the BMW G310 GS in Hindi for our fellow bikers over in India. Nosh and I have ridden together in Australia and India, and today we're going to ride a 400 kilometre loop of expressway, blacktop and forest trails. When we're riding internationally, typically this is the comfortable distance we'd like to travel each day. It's Nosh's first time on the Beamer.
Brilliant sort of neutral position. With a little bit of work on the seat for a taller sort of guy. I'm 175, 176, not too tall, but it still felt a bit low. What else? The clutch seemed a bit strange. At times it sort of let off, stalled the bike a few times, but then you'd warned me about it. Feels a little bit different to some other bikes I've ridden.
Yeah, its take-up is very strange. It seems to just not have any take-up initially.
That's right.
And it
There's
catches
no
you out.
take-up there.
Hey Nosh, for me that was like life in the slow lane.
You know, we were sitting at 110 on the freeway there. It was sort of 6,500, 6,700, and sort of when a hill comes in, you're close to 7,000 RPM, it gets really buzzy. Drop down a few hundred RPM, maybe a few thousand RPM, and you're back down in the 70 to 90 range, and the bike seems really comfortable there. I'd happily tour around this on this bike around the world on back roads, not on freeways.
Fortunately for Nosh, the freeway section was over. Onto a smooth valley dirt road before climbing some hills where the suspension of the BMW was tested by erosion mounds. The KTM, with its dirt-oriented suspension, revelled in the conditions. Standing on the pegs is the only way to deal with those mounds, unless of course you want to slow right down. Both bikes have a comfortable standing position for riders of around 5 foot 10 inches to 178 centimetres tall. Both bikes have bar extenders that open the cockpit and help to make standing a comfortable break from sitting. But at the end of the day, despite the 690's superior suspension, handling and power, there wasn't too much time between them in reaching our first destination. And the little 310, with its beefed up suspension by Rally Raid, didn't mind a little air and came down smoothly. After the lookout, the trail becomes a little rougher and the climbs and descents a little steeper, and rock ledges on the trail a little more hard-edged. It's in these conditions the KTM690 revels, and there's fun to be had. But when I'm on an international ride, I shave off my speed to reduce risk, because at the end of the day, I don't want to end up in a hospital overseas. Okay, the 310 doesn't have the power or agility of the 690, but in the rougher stuff, it does hold its own, and I would be completely satisfied with riding this bike in this type of terrain anywhere.
So here we go, the end of the day, 500 Ks and the test of the odd couple. On my right hand side, the powerful, light KTM690, the bike that's taken me from London to Sydney and adventures throughout Australia. The bike that handles like a 450, the bike that has the famous LC4 engine in it, developed for Dakar, lots of oil and very reliable. And to my left is a humble first attempt by BMW at a little mini adventure bike, a 310. Got reasonable power, a bit weak on the uptake. Got a gammy clutch and a couple of other little shortcomings, but at the end of the day, for its price, it's a great little bike that brings smiles to the faces of many riders who've ridden them. But don't underestimate it. A bike exactly to the same rally raid specifications as this bike has just crossed from Mongolia to London, being ridden by Amy Harburg.
So just thinking about this bike, Dave, by the time we finish this adventure or just this day of riding, it's pretty typical of any international adventure we'd ride. We'd sort of do close to about 500 Ks. You sit comfortably at 90 on this bike, which is more than what we'd need in any sort of countries that we've been riding as well. Any more than that and you're sort of edgy, things can happen. So it kind of takes the fun out of adventure riding sometimes. Sure, going fast is good, but this bike's performed brilliantly. I mean, if anything, I was just thinking back there, it feels like a super motard with a wide, comfortable and very low seat. But it was as flickable as a super motard on the roads. I quite enjoyed, once I let the air down from the tires, even the drop in I felt that was happening in the city disappeared. So all round, I'm really impressed with this bike. So if we look at the adventure motorbike scene in India, there's a spate of bikes that have been announced recently. The GS G310 obviously is already built, ready, available. The KTM690 Adventure has been announced. You've got the Enfield Himalayan, which was already launched a couple of years ago. Hero is coming out with its own little offering. And very soon you start to realize that the adventure motorbike scene in India is now beginning to pick up and is booming, really. There's a lot of people I have known and have met who have been traveling in India, especially females, and they might actually find the lower seat height, the lighter weight, really not intimidating. This bike. It's beautiful compared to some of the other stuff that's available there. Yes, sure, it has a price premium to it, but it certainly makes a good option in the market right now.
So you might think, after having that love affair with the 690, that I ride off the 310. Nothing could be further from the truth. The 690, yes, it has taken me across the world, but I didn't necessarily need it in most of the countries I went through. Yes, it is handy in Russia and the Ukraine, where you have very vast open lands and you're sitting on 120 and 140 kilometres an hour and you're really having to knock over those big kilometre days. But when we start talking about Asia and Southeast Asia, honestly, you would have rocks in your head if you went any faster than what the traffic is flowing. And that could be as little as 60 kilometres an hour, maybe even 40. But there is no one wins when you do faster than what the population is doing in their country. People just don't see you and you'll end up under a truck. We've recently seen a video report of Amy Harburg travelling from Mongolia to London on her 310, Now that bike has exactly the same specifications in terms of Rally Raid products and upgrades as this bike, so there's nothing different. And she's found that it was an incredibly reliable setup. What I like about it is the bash plate. The bash plate is a real good feature of the bike, as is the spoke wheels. The improvements in suspension, a little bit higher travel on the suspension, and it becomes far more adjustable. And look, yeah, you've got a bit of bling, you've got a muffler. I do love the riser bars on this. It allows you to stand up and not hunched over as much, and it just makes it comfortable for riding long distances. It's got good fuel range, particularly with the rotor pack on the back. And you know what I've noticed today is, and what I've noticed when I'm riding it is Nosh was keeping up with me. I mean, it sits very comfortably at 90 k's. Now, for most countries in the world, that's great. You know, that gets you around, that gets you large distances. Yeah, okay, you can rev it up, and I think at around 6-7 you might get to get it to 110 k's. That's not comfortable, but you can sit on a freeway like that, you know, maybe for 20 minutes. Personally, I wouldn't. I'd prefer just to sit on 90 k's. The bike is light, and you hear Nosh speaking about it, and already he's starting to fall in love with the fun that he's had on this bike. It's not intimidating, it's not imposing, it's easy to put your feet down. Probably a little bit cramped for his size, and maybe there's a bit of seat raising there that may be useful. But all in all, a very powerful bike. So in terms of Around the Worlders, we finished with a conclusion that these two are very, very close, and it depends on personal preferences. The 690 for me is still my favourite, particularly in Australia, where I can have those long legs out in the desert, and when I want to make distance fast. I love the handling of it, and I love the power of it when I want to have fun. But I don't ride off the 310 either. I really enjoy riding this. It's an incredibly capable bike. It's a bike that I've taken on quite difficult single trail, and it's got through. The only niggling thing with this bike is the take up of that clutch. And BMW, you've got to fix that. It's just literally, there's about 3mm in it. It's either on or off. And I don't know many people who don't stall this when they ride it. It's just an irritating thing. The take-up's just completely not right. Apart from that, it's a good bike. Surprisingly, it's got a paper air filter, but when we checked that after both Amy's bike and this bike did the APC rally and did thousands of Ks in dust, the dust was kept out by the paper air filter. Now, look, we checked that. We asked the servicing team at Pro Cycles to give us the air filter to check out, and we couldn't believe it. So yeah, it has a paper air filter, but you know, in really dusty conditions, it actually worked pretty well. But what we were doing today was comparing these bikes from the perspective of a round the worlder. What would make the best round the worlder? And it's not as simple as 690 more power, better handling. I'm sorry, they've come in far more equal over these 500 Ks. Yes, of course, in the tough stuff, the KTM690 handles it really well, and it's lots of fun, and there's lots of rocks being thrown everywhere. But at the end of the day, the little 310 did everything the 690 did, and did it with very little fuss. So when we get down to it, you really don't get sucked into this bigger is better when you're thinking about your significant long-range adventure trip. The small bikes, and this is only one of a whole range of small bikes out there that can easily do those big adventure trips. And when you start getting into Central Asia and Asia, you know, speed is superfluous. You don't need it. You can't go safely any faster than what the traffic's flowing, or you'll find yourself run over with a truck. So at the end of the day, both have good fuel range, particularly with the rotor pack on the back, and both of these bikes in their standard form really wouldn't cut it in terms of being a round the worlder. The difference that lifts them is the modifications by Rally Raid products. and it goes through suspension, it goes through protection of the engine and a very substantial bash plate on both. It goes through the bar raisers and a whole range of other things that make these bikes ready to go around the world. I'm really fond of this bike. This is the bike that took me from London to Sydney, and also back in Australia here it's done tons of adventure, and it does it well. And one of the reasons for that is the reliability of the Rally Raid parts, and I just want to go through some for you because they have been extremely reliable and very resilient to damage and accidents. So let's go through some of the key features of the 690 and why this bike is my favourite round the worlder. It's got 4 fuel tanks with a total of 28 litres. 2 in the front here, 1 underneath the seat, which is the one that comes with the bike, and then a further 5 litres to the rear. Rally Raid also make wonderful pannier racks, and you can see how they fit beautifully with the Cisco U giant loop panniers. And this is my setup, the ultimate setup. It keeps the centre of gravity low and to the front, to central to the bike, and it's just out of your way. So that's a really good setup. The other thing you'll notice is the bash plate. The bash plate comes with a 3 litre reservoir that I use for oil. That's really important when you're crossing long distances. The LC4 engine in the 690 has a 10,000 kilometre service interval, but I like to change that oil when I'm away on big adventure, and that 3 litre oil capacity allows me to do that and just change the oil, because the oil you want is 10W60, and it's a very high grade oil, and you need to have the right stuff. You just can't put anything in it. The other thing I like about the bike is this fairing. It keeps the wind off you from the buffeting, and the latest improvement Rally Raid have just brought out, and I've got one of the first, is this transparent fairing. They used to be in fiberglass, and now they've moved to this perspex. It's beautifully moulded. It goes over the headlight, so it stops dust getting into the headlight, and I've really liked it today because it gives me a far better vision than I've had in the past. The bike also comes with bark busters. That's just a standard thing, but you know, when you're riding around the world, they're just great. If you fall over, you're not going to break a hand lever. I don't ever recall breaking a hand lever on this, so that's one less piece of kit you have to take with you. The other thing with this setup is that I do have heated grips, and you know, you might say in Australia, well, you don't really need them, but I'm a bit of a wuss, and you know, when it gets down to about 3 degrees, I really enjoy having heated grips, and I wouldn't go anywhere without them. These Oxford ones that I've had on the bike have been fantastic, very reliable. Setting your suspension up for a round the world trip is really, really crucial. The rear spring, the rear shock on this bike is set up to carry an additional 50 to 60 kilograms. And when I don't have weight on the bike, it's kind of like a pogo stick. But I don't mind that, because when it's weighted up with all the camping gear and ready to go, it's perfect. And it's really worth having the bike well balanced. It'll prevent you having an accident. If your bike is sitting up like that, the handling of it will be reduced significantly. The forks on the front have been beefed up a little bit, not much. And again, that's just to take the extra weight and just to balance the bike out. My latest addition to the bike has been the rally pegs. They're much longer and much wider. Look, that was the best thing I've ever done. I've only had them on the bike about 2 months. I first rode with them on a KTM690 Adventure R, and I just loved them, and there's no turning back once you've got those wider, longer pegs, and I don't care what brand they are, but it just improves your riding enjoyment, and you have a tendency to stand on the bike more and longer, and that's all good in terms of handling, particularly in the dirt. There's a couple of modifications to the bike you can't see, and the first is the frame modifications. There's frame strengthening that Rally Raid have done to this bike, and the second thing is a fuel filter, and I strongly recommend for the 690s having that fuel filter, because what that will do is prevent you having injector problems. It won't stop fuel injector problems that occasionally occur on this bike, but it certainly will reduce the chances of having problems. So after 60,000 Ks on the bike, in terms of Rally Raid products, what has failed? There's only one problem I've had, and I fell heavily one day and I cracked one of these tanks just in here, and Rally Raid will replace those tanks at a much reduced rate for riders that have crashes and that sort of thing happens. You'll also note that my good buddy Philippe has made these fiberglass protectors for the corners of the tanks, and you'll notice there's a couple little scratches there where they've actually been used. They're a wonderful addition, and if you can't make anything like that, Rally Raid have a protective bar that goes around just to protect the edges of the tanks going. So frequently on this site, I'm asked questions, the KTMs are always breaking down, they're always got fuel pump problems. Well, 60,000 Ks on this bike, and let's go through the things that have failed on this bike. So the first engine failure at 15,000 Ks was an exhaust roller rocker arm. Now, there was a batch of poor quality roller rocker arms made, and once that was replaced, I haven't had a problem with roller rocker arms again. The fuel pumps, I've pretty spectacularly had a fuel pump failure in Russia. That fuel pump was changed in Russia, in Samara, Russia in 2012, when the bike had about, 7,000 Ks on it. It's now got 60,000 Ks, and it's still got that same fuel pump that was installed in the bike in Russia. So again, people rabbit on about these fuel pumps, and I know that there was a batch that was poor, but I haven't had any further problem than that one. Fuel injectors. I've gone through one fuel injector, and that was after we came out of the Simpson Desert. We got some fuel at Javoy, and it was just full of crap and stuffed the injector, and I had to change a fuel injector probably within 100 kilometres of there. On two occasions through backfires, the throttle body has blasted off the inlet manifold, and it creates a small gap between the throttle body and the inlet manifold and lets a lot more air in, and the bike runs really lean. That could potentially cause problems for you. Fortunately, I could tell that the bike wasn't functioning well, and we've managed to stop and put the throttle body back on. During this entire interview, I've been leaning on one of the best things I bought for this bike, and that was a Seat Concepts seat. It's compared to the standard seat, which is just unbearable. This Seat Concept seat is so comfortable, and I used to put sheepskins on the standard seats just to try to soften them up, but fortunately I discovered Seat Concept seat, and that's been brilliant on the bike. Another great feature on this bike from Rally Raid products is the Countershaft Sprocket protector. It's made out of billeted aluminium, and what that does is if the chain derails, it stops it going straight through and hitting your clutch master cylinder, which would be disastrous if you were halfway around the world. So that's a great feature of the bike. So what's the future of the KTM690 now that the 2019 model has been announced? Well, John Mitchinson from Rally Raid has told me that the front tanks, these two front tanks, won't fit the 2019 KTM690, which is a tragedy because that whole fuel system gave you 500 to 600 kilometres range. But what I do know is many of the Rally Raid products that I've spoken about will be able to fit the 2019 KTM690 and the Husky 701. For those thinking of adventurising a 690 with an Evo 2 kit and some of the features that I've talked about today, don't be disheartened. What John's discovering now is people are buying up second-hand models of the 2018 back right through 2012, 2010 KTM 690s. You can buy them at a very reasonable price, and what John's seeing now is people are buying them really cheap and then fitting the Evo 2 kit on them and making them round the world adventurers. So don't despair. The KTM 690 is a really reliable bike, provided you get those little hiccups straightened out, which is the exhaust, the roller rocker arms, the fuel injection, get a fuel filter on it, make sure the fuel pump's replaced. You get those things done on it. The LC4 engine, it carries I think 1.8 litres of oil. It's incredibly reliable, and it's built, it has a Dakar heritage. It's a great engine, so you know, not much can go wrong once you put in the effort and you just fix those problems. And what do you get out of it? You get a wonderfully handling round the world adventurer. So you might think, after having that love affair with the 690, that I ride off the 310. Nothing could be further from the truth. The 690, yes, it has taken me across the world, but I didn't necessarily need it in most of the countries I went through. Yes, it is handy in Russia and the Ukraine, where you have very vast open lands and you're sitting on 120 and 140 kilometres an hour and you're really having to knock over those big kilometre days. But when we start talking about Asia and Southeast Asia, honestly, you would have rocks in your head if you went any faster than what the traffic is flowing. And that could be as little as 60 kilometres an hour, maybe even 40. But there is no one wins when you do faster than what the population is doing in their country. People just don't see you and you'll end up under a truck.